Hey folks, Wes here. I thought this was an interesting little challenge here. Someone tweeted this picture of like, I'd like to have this layout on desktop or mobile, which is just like an image tag and some text and an image tag and some text. But then on desktop, they want the images to go on the left and the text to go on the right. And immediately, myself and a couple other people are like, CSS Grid, easy, done, right? And I thought like, yeah, but oh, maybe not, because the thing about like CSS Grid is that like, of course it has columns and you can put things in certain columns, but a lot of times people forget that CSS Grid also has rows as well. And you can't just like throw them into a column like that. And I don't think that's doable with CSS Grid. And I'm going to try. And then it might be doable with like CSS Columns or some sort of, I'm not even sure. I'm going to try it. So what we got here, we just got some text. I threw a UL in there, some paragraph tags, and some images interspersed. So check, first mobile layout is done. Now we need to think about doing it in some sort of layout. So I'm going to do it in grid just to show you like what the problem would be. So if we take our wrapper here and say grid template columns, and just do like 1FR, grid gap 20px. Now we have a grid of 2. Let's see here. Oh, no, I forgot display grid. There we go. And now the sort of the things are just being assigned. The first one goes in here, second one goes in there, first one, and third one goes in there. You get the point. What we could do is take all of the images. Actually, first take everything that is a direct child of the wrapper and say grid column 2. And that puts everything in the second column. And then we just take all the images and put it in the first column. And see, this is the problem that we run into. So what happens is that because I have not defined the height of a row, they're implicitly created, and therefore the height of them is defined by the biggest thing. In our case, it's the image is defining the row height, and you can't just like move this up, right? So that's not really a good option. One kind of like thing that I thought maybe you could do is like take all the images and put them out of order 0, and then take everything else and put them out of order 1. And what that will do is it'll put all the images up front, but that still doesn't solve our problem of what we're looking for. So maybe like we can try CSS columns. If I make this, I don't know if you can make something a grid and a column at the same time. Can you? So what happened to all my images? Images aren't showing up. I think that's because of the order property. No, the grid column. Oh yeah, there's only one column now, so obviously they won't show up. Okay, so I have a grid of one column, which allows me to use the order property. And then can I make that columns as well? 2. CSS columns. Let's see here. No, you can't grid something and column something at the same time. Okay, so that is out. Maybe if we display flex and flex direction row. Flex direction column. No, you can't call them something when it's flex or display. That makes sense. You're kind of goofing up the two different ones. What else can we do? Let's get rid of this. The order. Float them. With 50%. Clear both. That works okay-ish. That doesn't explain why this. Oh, that worked. And margin dash right 50 px. Oh, see, then that breaks. Was that just lucky? Yeah, that was just lucky based on the height of the size. So that doesn't work either. Let's go back to the display flex. Explore that a little bit more. We don't need the floats. Clears are gone. Flex direction column. And then order 0. Everything is order 1. And float left. Put a width of 50%. Everything else a width of 50% as well. Float right. Maybe we don't even need this order. Clear both. The problem is when I have multiple paragraphs, right? Like right there. So like one thing you could do is, and it always sucks to do this, is to wrap your content. So you'd have an image and then a div with the rest of the content that goes to the right, and then an image and then a div that all the content goes to the right. So that's an option. Let's try that. So dot right. Okay. And dot right. Right. Something is still goofed up here. Yeah, that's floats as well. That's an issue with floats, is like however long this thing is, if we make it much longer, it's going to push down the content. Clear left, right, both. Not doable with floats either. I don't know if this layout is possible, other than obviously putting them into 2 columns. So you could do that with JavaScript. You could pull all the divs out. That's a bit of a bummer though. So I'm just taking a look at the replies here. I intentionally didn't look at them because I didn't want to see anything. So everyone's saying CSS Grid. Do it with CSS Grid. You can do it with floats. So let's look at this one. Oh, so my first thing with something like this is like, okay, but does it handle like way more text? And no, it doesn't. So like as soon as this text gets longer, it works in perfect scenario, but you don't know, like you might have like a huge thing of text and then the layout gets goofed up. So that one doesn't work. CSS Grid areas, that's what we tried with column 1 and column 2. That doesn't work. Flexbox and judicious order, but if there are more than 3 pictures, yeah, you run into trouble. See, n images and n blocks of text could be any number. I think that's what's important. Is like, yeah, you can make a demo that has like working. I think this is what they said as well. Let me refresh this one. Like this one, see, this one kind of works, but like what happens when you get way more text and then the whole thing breaks again? I thought this was kind of a neat approach using floats and transforms, I think. So, something like that, or just maybe just floats, but it doesn't work. That's kind of the same idea we came up with. Append around. Flex direction, switcheroo. See, yeah, lots of like almost theirs, but like that's not real world ready, this kind of stuff. So I think the only option is to use JavaScript. So let's write a little bit of JavaScript ourselves. Let's write it in a separate file. We'll make a one called scripts.js. And let's link it up. So const, we'll call it wrapper. Wrapper. That's a log wrapper. Let's see where we're going with this thing. Console. Okay, so we got a wrapper. What we want to do is basically grab all of the elements. Let me get rid of all these. I think what I want to do is grab all of the direct children, filter out the images, and then put the text back, and then put like a div, and then put all the images into it. So let's get the images first. So let's just make this like a function called columnize. That takes in a wrapper and a selector, or let's just call it picks. Things that you want to pick out, like that's like a selector. And then we will go here. We'll call columnize wrapper. And then our selector, we just want to pull all the images out. Okay, maybe we should make this just a selector as well. So in here, wrapper, and console log wrapper. Wrapper is already, obviously. So we'll call that our grid. Let's console log our grid. Okay, so we got a wrapper. Now we need to find all the images. So if we grab this, if I select it in my dev tools, you can access it with $0 .child nodes. Is that what I want? No, I think I want children. Yeah, that's what I want. Children will give you just the direct children that we want. So that's all of them. So we want to filter it out. So const images is equal to, or maybe we'll say pics is equal to wrapper dot children dot. Oh, I don't know if we have a filter. This is the HTML collection. It's not. No, it's not a not an array. So we need to turn that wrapper children into an array. We'll filter it. We'll take the L and we'll say if the L matches the pic selector. Oh man, I cannot think of variables today. Too early in the morning. So we'll call this a pic selector. And then we'll console log the pics. Children is not iterable. No. Array dot from. Cannot convert. No. Oh, it's not wrapper.grid. It's grid.children. All right, so now we have an array of the images. And then we'll just say like const everything else. And we can just do the opposite of this. Or we could do this in like a reduce as well, but whatever. Array from grid.children, and then we'll just return the opposite. So pics and everything else. All right, so there's everything else. There's our images. So now we need to make some divs. So const left is equal to document.create element, a div left dot class list dot add left, and then left dot append child. Let's just take the pics, and for each it pic left dot append child the pic. Then if we console log our left, we have a div with all of our images in it. Then let's do the same for the right. So create left and create right. So const right, document create element, right. And then we'll take the, what did we call this? Everything else. For each L and right dot append child L. Let's see where we're at. Okay, there's nothing on the page now because when you take an element and append it to something else, it will remove it from the actual wrapper. You can see that it shouldn't be in our DOM. Our wrapper is now empty. Then we go and put them back into the DOM, and we will just say wrapper dot append child left and right. Wrapper.append child is not a function. Why not? Oh, it's grid. There we go. All right, now we're working. And then we just go to our CSS and get rid of all of this. Say right. Actually, now we can just go in here and say display grid template columns 2 grid gap 20px. I'll say wrapper image, max width 100%. And it should grid template columns too. Display grid gap. Oh, not two. One FR and one FR. I'm dumb. Hey, there we go. All right. So regardless of how long the content is and how long the images are, they will just go into their own. And then you'd also have to like set up some event listeners for when the window resizes itself. And then also potentially you could put it back. I guess if people are like resizing their browser, that doesn't really happen all that often. So you could just like figure out if you are at your specific breakpoint, and then run this columnize function. And if you really want to put it back, if someone then makes it bigger, maybe you're thinking like an iPad. If someone like turns the iPad, then you'd have to write some code to undo it. But I think that's long enough. Hopefully you enjoyed that. That was a bit of a tricky one. I thought like, you can see it in the comments here. Everyone thinks like no sweat. And then you actually get to doing it and you go, that's actually a bit harder than I thought.